Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're opening a case file from a century ago, a story where pioneering forensics met the chaos of post-revolutionary Egypt. So let's set the scene. It's Egypt, the early 1920s. The air is thick, not just with heat, but with tension after the 1919 revolution. Security is, well, let's say it's fractured. Crime is rampant, especially in the countryside. Grave robbing, bodies dumped far from prying eyes. Imagine a farmer out in his fields near a village, probably miles from anywhere important. He's digging near a water drainage ditch, the soil heavy and damp. His tool hits something, but it's not a rock. It's got this dull, sickening thud. He digs more. It's bone, human bone.
Right. And when the police get called out to something like this, especially back then, they're up against it. First, the environment itself is working against them. That Egyptian heat, the humidity, it just accelerates decomposition at an incredible rate. And second, frankly, the expectation was low. Unidentified remains often just got filed away against an unknown perpetrator. Case closed, no justice.
But this one felt different from the start.
Immediately. As they carefully excavated the rest of the skeleton, they found something completely jarring, lying there with the bones. An expensive, heavy winter coat. A bolto.
Wow. Okay, that's not standard farmer attire, is it?
Not even close. Locals wore simple cotton galabeas. This coat screams money, status.
So instantly, the victim profile shifts. This isn't likely a local villager.
Exactly. It suggests someone from a higher social class, probably landowning, wealthy. It narrows things down, but also deepens the mystery. Who was he, and why end up here?
And this is where our forensic pioneer enters the picture. The remains, coat and all, were sent to Dr. Sidney Smith. His task was huge, wasn't it? Take this collection of fragments, baked by the sun, soaked in the earth.
And turn it into a person. Reconstruct a life, figure out the death, build a map of the crime from almost nothing. Smith was incredibly methodical. He starts with the skull, the absolute foundation. First things first, confirm human. Then ethnicity. He took precise measurements, skull length, width, the shape of the jaw.
Trying to determine if the victim was Egyptian or perhaps European?
Correct. The measurements pointed clearly. Egyptian male.
Okay, what about age?
He looked at the skull sutures, those lines where the bones fuse as you age, and the condition, the rigidity of the main bones they recovered. His conclusion. This was an older man, definitely over 60.
An elderly, wealthy Egyptian man? That's already quite specific for 1920 from just bones. But the next details are where Smith's work becomes, well, almost unbelievable for the time. Let's talk teeth.
Or rather, the lack of them. That was the real giveaway, the upper jaw, completely toothless, smooth bone. The lower jaw had almost no teeth either, just 3 molars way in the back, and those showed heavy wear, lots of abrasion.
Wait a minute, so Smith looked at that and deduced dentures? False teeth?
Precisely. He reasoned that someone missing all their upper teeth and most of their lower ones, especially someone with the means suggested by the coat, would almost certainly have worn dentures.
Which back then were a luxury item, right? Not like today.
Absolutely. Another indicator of affluence. Someone who cared about their appearance had the money for that kind of dental work. It reinforced the wealthy victim profile.
Okay, that's one stunning deduction. What was the other clue from the skull? Something about hair.
Yes, tiny fragments of dark hair were still clinging to the scalp area. Smith didn't just look at them. He performed a chemical analysis.
Chemical analysis on hair in 1920. That sounds cutting edge.
It absolutely was. The analysis confirmed it wasn't natural hair, which many people used. It was a synthetic, chemical black hair dye.
Another vanity product, another sign this man wasn't a simple peasant.
Exactly. It just kept building the picture. Elderly, wealthy Egyptian man wore dentures, chemically dyed his hair black.
Smith was painting a portrait. Did he get a sense of the man's physical stature beyond just elderly?
Oh, yes. He painstakingly reassembled the major limb bones they had of the long bones, parts of the spine. From these, he calculated the victim's height, approximately 180 centimeters.
That's nearly 6 feet tall.
Which was remarkably tall for an Egyptian man of that era. So not a frail old man, but physically quite imposing.
Okay, this next part is what truly blows my mind. Smith somehow figured out what the victim was doing right before he was killed. How on earth did he manage that?
This is where you see his genius for observation. He examined the shin bones, the tibiae. He found subtle traces of swelling, specific wear patterns on the bone itself.
And what did those patterns suggest?
They indicated the victim was sitting cross-legged. That traditional resting posture you see everywhere in rural Egypt, maybe relaxing or talking.
So he was likely seated, perhaps unsuspecting, at the very moment of the attack.
That's the strong implication. It paints a picture of vulnerability, of being caught completely off guard.
Incredible. What about time of death? How long had the body been in that ditch?
Based on the decomposition rate, factoring in the very moist soil, which actually slows things down a bit compared to dry heat, Smith estimated the man had been dead and buried for about 6 months.
So, 6 months prior, a tall, wealthy, elderly Egyptian man with dentures and dyed hair was sitting cross-legged near this ditch when he was killed. The picture is becoming incredibly sharp. Now, the cause of death. Was it definitely murder?
Oh, absolutely. The evidence was undeniable once Smith examined the bones closely. There were clear-cut marks.
Cut marks, suggesting dismemberment.
Yes, likely made with a heavy knife, maybe even a cleaver. Probably happened after death, judging by the nature of the cuts.
Grim. But what actually killed him?
The definitive proof was a tiny horseshoe-shaped bone called the hyoid, located deep in the neck, under the tongue. Smith found it was fractured.
And that means?
In forensics, a fractured hyoid is the classic signature of manual strangulation. Someone squeezed the life out of it with their bare hands.
So the final report for the police was unbelievably detailed for the time.
It was. Victim, tall Egyptian male, over 60, wore dentures, dyed his hair black. Cause of death, manual strangulation. Postmortem, dismemberment. Time of death, approximately 6 months ago. Circumstances, likely seated cross-legged, buried immediately in moist soil.
Armed with that incredibly specific profile, the police weren't just fishing anymore, were they?
No, they had a very clear target. They started looking through missing persons reports from about 6 months back. They needed someone who fit all those criteria. Wealthy, elderly, male, vanished around that time.
And they found a match.
They did. A report filed by a prominent landowning family, one of their senior members, the one who managed all their finances and assets, had disappeared mysteriously 6 months prior. With no body and no leads, the case had just been shelved. Classified as a likely disappearance. Suspect unknown.
Until now, this profile matched perfectly.
Too perfectly to be a coincidence. So the police obtained a warrant to search the missing man's home, discreetly before approaching the family.
What did they find?
The final pieces. Inside the man's house, they discovered the specific set of dentures Dr. Smith had predicted. And, crucially, a bottle of the exact type of chemical hair dye mentioned in the report.
Case closed on identity. That's incredible confirmation.
Beyond any doubt, they knew who the victim was. Now they needed to figure out who killed him.
The focus naturally shifts to the immediate family, right? The wife, daughter, son.
Exactly. On the surface, they seemed respectable, concerned, but the police picked up on a weird vibe in the village. Neighbors were reluctant to talk.
Fear. Or maybe they'd been told to keep quiet.
That was the suspicion. Coercion or genuine fear. When questioned, the family seemed to have a story, but there were inconsistencies.
Okay, what did they say?
The wife claimed her husband had just left one day. Said they'd been having marital problems, issues related to his health, maybe feeling neglected. She suggested he'd probably gone traveling, maybe even remarried somewhere else.
And the daughter. Did her story match?
Mostly. She confirmed the "he left suddenly" part. But her reason was different. She said he left to get away from arguments. Arguments with her mother, yes, but also increasingly bitter fights with her brother.
About what?
Money. Control of the family assets. The daughter painted a picture of serious financial conflict, especially between father and son.
So, the wife points to health and marriage, the daughter points to money and conflict with the son. That puts the son under a spotlight, doesn't it?
Especially since he was apparently known in the area for being, let's say, less than responsible, maybe a bit erratic. And the core issue, identified by the daughter wanting money, specifically the inheritance, gives him a clear motive.
Greed. Wanting the inheritance before the father died naturally.
That seemed to be the driving force. And then the police uncovered the crucial piece of the puzzle regarding the cover story.
What was that?
They traced back the origin of the rumor that the father had traveled and remarried. The story the wife and daughter believed and had told others. It came entirely from the son. He had deliberately planted that story right after his father disappeared. He convinced his own mother and sister it was true.
Wow. That's cold. Manufacturing the entire narrative.
Extremely calculated. So the police confront the son. They lay out Dr. Smith's forensic findings, the strangulation, the dismemberment, the timeline, the dentures, the hair dye. They point out the conflicting family stories. And they reveal that they know he started the travel rumor.
The pressure must have been immense. Did he break?
He did. Faced with the irrefutable science and the exposure of his deception, he confessed to everything.
What was the full story?
He admitted planning it. He'd even gone out to the fields days before and pre-dug the grave in that secluded spot near the ditch. On the day itself, he picked a fight, a minor argument, just as an excuse. He suggested they take a walk out into the fields to cool off.
A walk casual enough that the father wouldn't bother putting his dentures in?
Exactly. He led his father out towards the pre-dug grave. Once there, he attacked him, strangling him manually. Then, using a knife and cleaver he'd likely hidden nearby, he dismembered the body to make it easier to bury and conceal, then covered him up in the moist earth.
And the cover-up back home.
Swift and chilling. He went back to the house alone, packed a small bag of his father's clothes to sell the idea of travel, then told his mother they'd had a terrible argument and his father had stormed off, saying he needed space.
All just to get his hands on the inheritance faster.
Pure avarice. Ugh. The record showed that in the 6 months between the murder and the body being discovered, the son had already managed to inherit and rapidly squander a significant portion of the family's wealth.
So justice was served.
It was. Thanks entirely to Dr. Smith's pioneering forensic work, the son was tried, convicted, and ultimately sentenced to execution.
It's an absolutely landmark case, a murder that was effectively solved 6 months after it happened, resurrected from a cold case pile labeled unknown perpetrator.
All because of meticulous science applied to tiny details. The wear on teeth, the chemicals in hair dye, the marks on bone. Smith literally made the skeleton speak.
It proved very early on the incredible power of forensics to cut through lies and decomposition, didn't it?
It really did. It showed that even when faced with significant challenges like time and environment, science could provide answers traditional detective work might never find. Those small details, dentures, dye, they became the keys to unlocking a murder conviction.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? If a crime involving a wealthy, prominent man nearly slipped through the cracks in 1920, only saved by this new science, how many other stories, how many other victims from that era and before are still silent, buried in the soil, their cases wrongly closed or never opened? What secrets might still be waiting for science even now to finally give them a voice?